So Matthew, from earlier this morning, sort of preempted this talk a little bit right at the end when he started to talk about the relationship between the practitioner and the client and how that is actually of the most benefit, not specifically on the therapy that you're doing. But a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is, as the title suggests, is highlighting that we are in fact the same as our clients. And we are the same in that we are all different, but what this workshop is going to be about is suggesting that a lot of what we're supporting our clients to go through and supporting them to be able to deal with their issues and the things that are going on for them is also a process that we can go through. So I have a premise that unless we have dealt with the issue that the client is presenting with, we're actually unable to support the client with that same issue. So if let's say for example, we've got maladaptive behaviours with eating, and a client comes to us to support us to help them understand why they have maladaptive behaviours with eating, we're actually not truly going to be able to support them unless we've actually dealt with our own patterns ourselves. So everything that I'm talking about is never about saying separating clinician from client, but is actually saying we are exactly the same as our client. And if you are working with a client and they're a person that feels judged, or if you're a person that feels judged, do you feel motivated to want to work with that person? Typically the answer would be no, we don't want to work with somebody who we're feeling judged by. So a lot of what we're looking at here is going, well, how do we work with ourselves while working with clients and seeing them as an equal as us? So therefore, as a result, they're not feeling judged, they feel equal to us in the way that they present the world. But before I go into the specific details of all of that, I work, my clinic is Fabic, and I'm probably the luckiest out of all of us in location because I'm actually 2 minutes down the road from here. So I've had the least amount of travel out of everybody. But Fabic is a behavioural specialist centre, and we support people to understand and change unwanted behaviour. And that phrase goes from, as I call it, short people to tall people. So I work with people, last week I had a client come in that was 22 months of age, and then my following client after that was a person who was 78 years of age. And so we work across the span with all people who are using a behaviour that they would prefer not to be using. And if I ask you all to be honest, who of you are using a behaviour you'd prefer not to be using? Is it all of us? And one of the issues that we have with changing behaviour is that a lot of society focuses just on changing behaviour. Whereas if you see a lot of our logo says it's actually about understanding and then changing behaviour. So it's really important to not focus on changing behaviour without actually understanding why the behaviour is happening. So everything that we're doing with our clients is understanding that all behaviour is happening for a reason. And for me, it's never ever about judging behaviour. And as my clients always sit down, I'm saying to them, look, I don't care what behaviours you're going to tell me you're using, because I know those behaviours are not you. Those behaviours are just the coping mechanisms that you have to cope with life, and life in a way that you don't completely feel equipped to manage. So one of the things that we're doing is connecting with people for who they are first and not judging them or identifying by their behaviours. And the way that I connect with a person is knowing that we're all the same, in that at the core of all of us, we're all awesome, amazing, lovable beings. And that's how we're all the same. Nobody is different. However, we're not always using amazing behaviours. But we are always, no matter what behaviours we're using, we're always amazing. And I've worked with some people with very high intensity unwanted behaviours who throughout life have been judged quite severely for their behaviours. And as a result, along the trail, everybody's forgotten who they are. And they've forgotten to connect with this person. And this person or this being at the core of them is always an awesome, amazing, lovable being. So no matter who walks through my door, they're generally the first words that they're getting from me, is that you're amazing just for being you. Not for what you do, not for who you are, not for what you don't do, but you're amazing just for being you. And if I take that concept and just extend it a little bit further, what we're starting to support people to understand is that behaviour is not who you are, it's what you do. So there's the core being, as I highlighted before, the awesome, amazing, lovable being, but then there's your behaviours. And those behaviours are extremely harmful if a person starts to become identified by those behaviours. And whether those behaviours that a person's becoming identified by are unwanted behaviours, which I'll typically call thumbs down behaviours if I'm working with short people, or wanted behaviours or thumbs up behaviours, either of those are equally harming to become identified by. So for example, this chart first came about when one of my first clients, this first client came into my office. He was a 5-year-old boy, and previously I had already met with his parents. And this boy was using a lot of aggressive and unwanted behaviours, and he was identified by a lot of people as being naughty, as being bad, as being all of those words that to me are just words. But this boy, when he came in, I said to him, "So why are you coming to Fabic?" And the reason why I asked that question is to get an understanding as to why they think they're coming to Fabic, what's previously been told to them. So this 5-year-old boy said to me, he's coming to Fabic so I can stop him from being a bad person. And that same statement was reiterated to me this week when I was doing a social skills program, and in the activities that we were required to do is learning to give compliments. And so this 8-year-old was giving compliments, and he came to me to give me a compliment, and he said, "Oh, the thing I like about you is you stop me being bad." And what I brought back straight away is, "You're not bad." I said, "Yes, you use thumbs down behaviours, but you're amazing. You're amazing just for being you, and you're awesome, and geez, you're lovable. And yes, you use some thumbs down behaviours, but they're not you." But if we get people who become identified by being bad, like that 5-year-old or this 8-year-old, if they think they're bad, what are they going to be like when they're 15? And what are they going to be like when they're 25? And as we carry on, what are they going to be like? What are they going to be like for the rest of their life? Like for me, a theory would be how many people are in prison now using unwanted behaviours. Yes, they've used a group of behaviours that need to be have consequences to them, but how many of those use those behaviours when way back at 5 they already identified themselves as being a bad person? So they become resigned to the fact that they're bad. Not that they're awesome and they're amazing and they're lovable. And yes, they use unwanted behaviours. That's not even considered. It's not even part of their repertoire. But equally as harming is being identified by your thumbs up behaviours. For example, if I've got a person who's a straight A student at school, and she becomes identified as being the straight A student at school, what happens if she gets a B+? Her world falls apart. Or if you've got a mother who's identified by being a good mother, and then their child has a tantrum in public, that mother just feels totally crushed because they now think they're being judged on their mothering skills. Rather than saying, "I'm amazing, and yes, I've got a child who's using unwanted behaviours right now, but that's no judgment of me as a person." Or yes, I'm an amazing person who got a B+, but if I got a D or if I got an A, I'm equally amazing. That shouldn't have an impact. But now look at it from a practitioner's point of view. Like, first of all, how many of you can honestly say they feel amazing and they identify themselves as amazing, awesome, lovable beings? Like, if that in any way makes you squirm on the inside, then there's a sense of saying, well, if that makes you squirm, is it possible that it's not even capable of you being able to teach that to your clients? Because if you're not living that for yourself, it's not possible to teach that to your clients. And if we've got to look at the pure fact of we've got to support our clients to connect with who they are themselves, we also need to learn how to connect with ourselves first. So we need to look at how can we not become because we already are amazing, but how can we start to feel and express that amazingness on a regular basis? Does that make sense? So everything that I'm teaching people is that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, at the core of each and every one of us is an awesome, amazing, lovable being, and our behaviours are what we do, but our behaviours are not who we are. We are amazing first, and we are practitioners second. Our practitioner, but if we become identified by being a practitioner, how we feel about ourselves will become influenced on the results that we seem to get from our clients or the feedback that we get from our clients. And if a client walks away saying, that's the worst session I've ever had, or that's the worst therapist in the world, if you feel amazing just for being you, those comments will have no impact on who you are. And equally so, if you have a client walking away saying, you saved my life, thank you so much, straight away you'll go, actually, no, I didn't save your life. I taught you the skills and you're the one that chose to do that for yourself. So the accolades that you receive will also have no impact on how you feel about yourself. So no matter what comments come back, they will not impact on how you feel about yourself, because the outside world, the comments won't matter because you know how amazing you are for yourself. Does that make sense? But it's a foreign concept, and it's not something that's typically taught. And how do we actually start to feel that amazingness on a regular basis? I'll give you some examples as we go through. But before we go on to that, I just want to talk about some different topics. And the question that I've often asked is what motivates people to work in the field of mental health? And a lot of the times we go in with I want to help people situation, which there is a truth behind that for a lot of people. But, and I'm not saying this for anybody in the group, but I have seen this in the profession, a lot of people do go into the field as well, because then they don't have to deal with their own stuff. Because if you're working with somebody who has a higher intensity of issues than yourself, you look better than them. And if you look better than them, you don't actually have to deal with your stuff. Does that make sense? So it is important to ponder for ourselves is what was the decision that we made to go into the field? And the decision is it to support humanity? If that's a genuine call, that's great, because that will then mean you're genuinely interested in supporting yourself as well. But if it's I want to be better than, then it's great, we just work with the people who have not achieved the same level of skills that we have, but we cap ourselves from continually develop. So for me, working within this field is consistently talking about everything we teach to our clients is something that we also need to be living for ourselves. So the 3-step process that I'll be going through and teaching you is a 3-step process that I live for myself. And as a result of doing that 3-step process, I'm consistently able to increase the level of clients that I'm able to support and the level of clients I'm able to work with. And I can say that some of the intensity of the clients that were coming into Fabic a while ago, I had the skills to be able to work with because I'd addressed those issues within myself. However, there were certain levels I'd capped myself to a certain point as well. And as a result, other people were coming to me at the same level. And they were also saying, well, life could be a bit better than where it is right now. And I'm going, no, you're fine, you're okay. But that's just because I'd capped myself. But now as I keep working on myself and the challenges that I've experienced are starting to disappear, so the quality of my life is improving, that's increasing my ability to work with this gap. So the level of clients that I'm able to work with are now changing. But that comes from an approach And of always saying to my clients is, I am no different to you. We are exactly the same. I still have issues, I still have challenges, I still have things in life that I need to develop the skills to work for. And as I teach all of my clients, our number one job is to love ourselves. Our number one job is to continually work on ourselves. And whether it's working with a child or whether it's working with a parent or whether it's working with a psychiatrist who I was working with recently, all of us are equally, we need to put ourselves first. And if we put ourselves first, then we're able to support others. However, it's a challenge, or it challenges our beliefs in what does putting ourselves first. Because a lot of people come into the helping field thinking we need to sacrifice ourselves for others. But if we sacrifice ourselves for others, we're in fact harming ourselves, and by harming ourselves, we're reducing our capacity to support other people. So it is consistently important to say supporting ourselves is not selfish, as the myth is often said. But supporting ourselves is in fact supporting our clients even further. And there's been times that I'll call into work and say, guys, I need to have the day off work today, not because I'm sick, but because I'm not in the best state to be able to support the clients. Yeah, so then I have that time to be able to get myself back on track, and then the quality that I give clients is enhanced even further. Yeah, but if I go in and give a 50% job, they receive a 50% quality of me, and that's not fair for the client themselves. So what I'm talking about here is living what we teach, is if we're talking about teaching our clients self-responsibility, it is important that we start living that. Because if you've ever been to, let's say, a doctor who smells of nicotine, and you went into the room and they said, oh, you should give up smoking. Or you saw them out the back having a cigarette before you went in for your appointment. Would you listen to them? No. Technically what they're saying is correct. Yeah? Or if you've gone to a person who's overweight and they say you should go on a diet. Technically they're correct. Yeah? However, because they're not living it, it's just words that go over your head. So everything that I'm teaching at Fabic is all about teaching independence and responsibility. And I know the only way to be able to support ourselves completely is through responsibility. But if we're not living responsibility, are our clients going to be able to develop the skills for responsibility? Because if we preach it, it is just words. But if we live it, then it comes from a whole different level of quality that will support the client to develop.